जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रुत्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दशूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे मौनव्याख्या प्रकटितपर ब्रह्मतत्त्वं युवानम् वर्षिष्टान्ते वसत्रिगणैः आवृतं ब्रह्मनिष्ठैः आचार्येन्द्रं करकलित चिन्मुद्रम् आनन्दरूपम् स्वात्मा रामं मुदितवदनं दक्षिणामूर्तिमीडे वटविटपि समीपे भूमिभागे निषण्णम् सकल मुनिजनानां ज्ञानदातारमारात् त्रिभुवनगुरुमीशं दक्षिणामूर्तिदेवं जनन मरण दुःखच्छेददक्षं नमामि चित्रं वटतरोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरुर्युव गुरोस्तु मौनव्याख्यानम् शिष्यास्तु छिन्नसंशयाः निधये सर्वविद्यानां विषजे भवरोगिणां गुरवे सर्वलोकानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। चिदानाय महेशाय वटमूलनिवासिने सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवत् व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। विश्वं दर्पण दृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतम् पश्यन् आत्मनि मायया बहिर्भूतं यथा निद्रया यत् साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ् निर्विकल्पं पुनः माया कल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्य चित्रीकृतम् मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि योगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये यस्यैव स्फुरणं सदात्मकं असत् कल्पार्थकं भासते साक्षात् तत्त्वमसीति वेदवचसा यो बोधत् यत्याश्रितान् यत्साक्षात् करणात् भवेन्न पुनरावृत्तिर्भवाम्बनिधौ तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नानाचिद्र गडोदरस्थितमहां दीपप्रभास्वरम् ज्ञानं यस्य तु चक्षुरादिकरणध्वरा बहिस्पन्दते जानामीति तमेव भान्तम् अनुभात् एतत् समस्तं जगत् तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये.
Thank you, Neelakantanji. So today, now, we are going to start our exposition on the Dakshinamurti Stotram. As Schopenhauer used to say, very interestingly, that studying Upanishads is just like climbing the Mount Everest. It's a matter of a huge adventure. It's an expedition, but once you reach there, you cannot stay there for long. Your lung is about to burst because of the lack of oxygen at such an height. Your lung is about to burst out. So you cannot stay there for long. So studying the Upanishad is something like that. And based on these Upanishadic teachings, when we come to the stotras of Shankaracharya, it is still more terse. And that's why you will find just 10 stotras, the studying that short exposition, that short composition on Dakshinamurti Stotram, this just 10 stotras. He will be taking us to the heights of the spiritual realization. And the 10 verse is sufficient, as if you cannot stay there for long. It makes us feel suffocating. Though it's a very high realization, but as we are not up to it, we are taken there to be again immediately brought down as if. So that 10 stotras are very sublime. In the 10 stotras, he has actually expounded the entire non-dual Advaitic philosophy of Vedanta. So for today's discussion, we will of course share the screen so that you can also follow what we are just describing. So I will start today's discussion by sharing the screen. So in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we find Swami Vivekananda, who was yet to become Swami Vivekananda. He's known as Narendranath in his young days. So one day we find during his visit to Ramakrishna, being frustrated with the ways of the world. That's the time when his father has passed away. He was really going through very, very challenging situations of life. And then we find Naren in that challenging situation of life is saying something very interesting. What he's saying? The scheme of the universe is devilish. I would have created a better world. That's Narendranath. So he is as if the incarnation of Shiva. The Dakshinamurti is Shiva himself. We find the same plight of Shiva, seeing the creation. When he saw the creation, the Brahma has created the creation, this entire universe, and when Shiva looked at it, he saw everywhere pain and suffering, disease and death. And he was not at all satisfied with the Brahma's creation. Seeing the suffering of the beings, the compassion welled up from Shiva. Shiva's teardrops became the Rudraksha. That's how the mythology goes. In Indian mythology, one interesting thing, each and every things of the mundane existence has somehow linked with the myths, so that whenever we see them, we see the divine in it. As the first mantra of the Isha Upanishad starts, Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat. Envelop the entire universe with the divine, because it is the divine who has become the entire universe. Just try to see the divine there. It's not hypnotizing, it's dehypnotizing. It's a process of dehypnotizing. So that's the thing which the Isha Upanishad is instructing. So here also we find that this type of mythology helps us, that seeing the Shiva's teardrops in the Rudraksha, it makes it sacred. Everything becomes holy. So Shiva's teardrops became Rudraksha. The Shiva went to Brahma. And after going to Brahma, he complained. So what's the creation you have created? It's in no way ideal. There is so much suffering, there is death, there is disease. And what Brahma responded was something which has to be reflected upon, which made even Shiva to reflect upon. What Brahma told is very interesting. He told, the creation is, it is neither good nor bad. It is neither joy nor a matter of sorrow. It just is, it exists. All the so-called the emotions, the feelings, the joys, the sorrows, is the way we react to that simple easiness. The universe is just a mere existence. All our joys and sorrow is the way we react to that happenings of life. How we are reacting to that. That made really Shiva think. And these words of Brahma made Shiva to go into deep meditation, where you will find in the Eastern philosophy, this is one of the basic things, that spiritual realization comes by going beyond the mind. The self is not the mind. You have to go beyond the mind. You have to stop the vrittis of the mind, the pulsations of the mind, to go beyond the mind, to really find out who you are. So Shiva's meditation led him to that state which is beyond the mind, beyond speech, avanga manasagocharam, beyond mind, beyond speech. And that took him to a realization that this creation exists only in relation to the mind and the senses. Otherwise, only that non-dual pure amness exists, which is beyond all the so-called locality. There's nothing can bound it within the psychophysical existence. The same Atman, which is appearing as my soul. And when you go to that realization, it becomes all-pervading. It becomes something which is non-local. And the entire creation ceases. The world of this panorama, for the time being, when you are in that state, the entire existence falls off, because you're beyond the mind. But at the same time, you are not annihilated. You still retain your amness, which has no locality. We always relate these words, Hara Hara, Vyom Vyom, with Shiva. But most probably, we sometimes even don't know why these words are uttered. On realizing that Shiva, realizing his real nature, that non-dual locality, that non-local, non-dual reality. Out of joy, that celestial dance uh, just emanated from him. He was dancing that celestial dance out of the tremendous joy, and constantly he was uttering Hara Hara Vyom Vyom. Hara Hara means, in Sanskrit, Hara means to take away. Cessation is Hara. Hara means to take away, to cease. So the entire perceptual world has ceased. He alone exists. But does he exist as a limited being? No. Vyom, Vyom. Vyom speaks of space. Vyoma is space. Hara means cessation and Vyoma means space. This perceptual world in which our psychophysical existence is also included, that ceases, and the amness becomes non-local. It's no more limited just to your this psychophysical existence. The skin boundary falls off. You cannot limit yourself. The entire space is being pervaded by your amness. So that's what Hara Hara Vyom Vyom means. So he was totally engrossed in the divine realization. When he calmed down, then the compassion welled up. That the entire humanity, all the beings are just suffering because of this lack of proper perception, which can only be had when you can go beyond the mind and senses. That's why in the scripture they call it a paroksha anubhuti. Means at present, all our anubhuti, all our realization is paroksha. Paroksha means with the help of something else. That I have the sunglass of mind and senses before my soul to visualize. And that's why it is breaking into this world of phenomenon, the spectrum of this phenomenon. When you can go beyond that, then everything falls off. Your identity with all the flow stops. You find that you are in eternal present. There was no past, no present, no future. You are eternally existing in the eternal present, and nothing can annihilate you. That's the realization when dawns in, then the suffering falls off. Everything becomes a passing phase. You don't get afflicted by them. So Shiva's heart was welling with compassion. And that's why he's Dakshinamurti. You know, this Dakshinamurti word is very significant. And the Indian subcontinent, the general trend is that when you have viraga, when you have detachment, you go to the Himalayas, which is in the north. You climb up the mountains, sit in some caves, you are just totally apart from the society, you are deeply in contemplation to find out your real nature. So it speaks of going away. But when you are realized, it's not all. Some want to be merged in that realization. A few have that compassion. A few have that unconditional compassion. There is no selfish end behind that, behind that compassion. There is no selfish end. Just out of unconditional compassion, they turn around. All were going northwards for realization and they're not coming back. It was Mahaprasthana, but Shiva is God. He has to come down to just bestow salvation to the entire humankind. So he's Dakshinamurti. That speaks of avatarana, to come down. He's facing the south so that he can come down and instruct all in the realization in which he has got established. So that's why his name is Dakshinamurti. He's facing the south. He comes down. This the idea of avatarana. Sri Ramakrishna explains with a very nice parable the idea of avatarana. The three friends were passing through a street. They saw a huge wall just by the side of the street. They were curious to know what's there beyond the wall. They managed to get a ladder. They placed the ladder on the wall. and one of them climbed up. The other two were waiting for the one who have climbed up to relate that what is there on the other side of the wall. So when this one has climbed on the top, just seeing the other side, he was so ecstatic, he couldn't control. He couldn't control himself. The other two were asking, what you see, please relate. Without relating, he jumps. The ecstasy overpowers him. He has no such uh, patience even to relate his experience. He simply jumps to the other side. The second friend also gets up the ladder. He also meets the same plight. He also cannot resist himself. He jumps to the other side. There was a joy, mirth of joy in the other side. Now, the third one, as nothing was related, he also gets up. He also feels like jumping to the other side. But then the thought comes, if I jump to the other side, there is no one to relate this experience to the world who is in the other side of the wall. So he somehow restricts himself, controls himself, comes down. This is avatarana, descending out of compassion, unconditional compassion, just to relate the experience to the humankind. And that's what Shiva is, just without any selfish motive. There is no selfishness, because when you go to that realization, there can never be any selfishness. He comes down from that realization to teach the yoga. The yoga has evolved from that Shiva's realization. Patanjali has just narrated it, but it evolved. It was discovered by Shiva. So Shiva came down to instruct the humankind in yoga. So this is the background of Dakshinamurti Stotram. And we find the seekers come around. Some say it is the four Kumaras who came, who were seeking for the absolute truth, who came to Dakshinamurti. But we can take in general, all the seekers came to him and he related the knowledge of his yoga. So this is the background on which this Dakshinamurti Stotram has been composed. The Stotram is a particular type of rhythm is there. It is called Shardula Chanda. You will find there are 19 syllables in each line, and each line is chanted in two phrases. In the first phrase, there will be 12 syllable, and again the next phrase, the 7 syllable. Just now, Neelakantanji was chanting, just following the prescribed method of the chanting. Just now, we saw that beautiful chanting in the Shardula Chanda. So today, the 10 stotras of Dakshinamurti Stotram, the 10 stanzas, that we will try to cover. Along with that, there was an invocation which has 8 slokas. So we won't take all the 8 slokas. The first sloka, the other slokas have the repetition of the ideas of the first sloka. The first sloka has been still more elaborately explained in the remaining 7 slokas. Because of the shortage of time, the invocation, only the first sloka we will take up today for discussion. And then we will enter directly into the Dakshinamurti Stotram. So let us go to the first sloka of the invocation. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varishtha Ante Vasad Rishiganai Avritam Brahmanishthai. So just to make it easily comprehensible, I'm not just chanting, I'm just not reciting it in a way it's in the sloka. I'm just breaking it up word by word. All the sandhis has been broken up so that it becomes a bit easy for all to comprehend the word by word meaning of it. We will come to the meaning. So Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varishtha Ante Vasad Rishiganai Avritam Brahmanishthai Achar Yendram Karakalita Chin Mudram Anandarupam Swatma Ramam Muditavadanam Dakshinamurtim Ide. So let us go to the meaning. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam. This first, the invocation starts with a wonderful idea that the teacher is Yuva, young. What he's doing, he's teaching the Parabrahma Tattvam. He's teaching, he's revealing. Prakatita means to reveal the Tattva, the principle of the absolute reality, the Brahma. The word Brahma is very significant. Brahma came from Brih Dhatu, which means Brihat. Whenever I think of my individuality, at last, if I close my eyes, my ears, I stop all my senses, I cannot get rid of the idea of the amness that I am, I am. I can stop my so-called the vagaries of the mind. I can stop all the perceptions, but that's something which is constantly as if emanating from ourselves that I am, I am. But that amness is localized. I know that amness is localized within my psychophysical existence. When you go to the realization that localized awareness falls off, it becomes non-local. The same Atman appears as something Brihat that becomes Brahma. And that is non-dual. The real, the essence of you, the essence of me, the essence of the entire existence is the same, that same non-dual amness. That's the declaration of the Vedanta, which comes from realization. It's not imagination. It's not a way to hypnotize us to get to just conceal from the suffering of the world. Someone told Swamiji, Vedanta is a nice way to hypnotize us away from the suffering. Swami Vivekananda immediately replied, Madam, you are already hypnotized. Vedanta is there to de-hypnotize you. So this is the way of de-hypnotizing. We are already hypnotized with this limited idea of individuality. Vedanta, from the heights of realization, comes down and say that what you think of as something limited is actually Brahma, that non-dual existence, that ultimate amness, which has no annihilation, which has no transformation, which is beyond any sort of transformation. That's the Brahma Tattva. So that Brahma Tattva, to teach that, the teacher, the young one, the Yuva, comes down. But what's the way of teaching is very interesting. It's not by words. Mauna Vyakya. The exposition is in profound silence. So the real teaching comes through silence. So we are today going to have so much of exposition. These are all not to have the realization. This all exposition is meant to understand what that real silence is, profound silence is, to motivate us to go to that profound silence. All this exposition is. This exposition can never give us the knowledge. It's only that profound silence that can give us the knowledge. To give an example, if I go on describing you the taste of mango to a group of people who have never tasted mango, for years together, I may use volumes of words. I may just write volumes of books. It will not be explained till they taste the mango. So only realization can give us the knowledge. So the moment they taste the mango, no words are required. Immediately the ignorance, all the words then becomes meaningless. It takes us to the ultimate realization. So words can never give us that realization. Yes, all those explanation of the taste of mango, if motivates someone to taste the mango, then it has some validity. But if it makes others to also continue with the discussion, then it has no validity. So now we will understand, but the greatest teachers are those who has the tremendous power to deliver the knowledge just in silence, because they have went to the realization their ego boundary has fallen off. They can relate to every mind. From the cosmic mind point of view, we are all that one mind. He can relate to every mind as his ego has fallen off, and he can bring about an immediate transformation in others' personality. And that's what Shiva is doing. So, this profound silence is not just stopping the external speech. That doesn't entail silence. The real silence is the silence of the mind. That's what is meant by yoga. The Yoga Sutra starts with that. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. The mind is constantly breaking into vrittis, into thought modulations. Yoga is just stopping nirodha, to totally restrict the modulations of the mind. You know, the word vritti is very interesting. In Sanskrit, vritti never means mental modulations. It means occupation. It means profession. If you are a doctor, your vritti is that you are a doctor. For a what it means, exactly it means the profession, the thing by which I sustain myself. A doctor by his medical profession sustains himself. An engineer by his profession sustains himself or herself. So here the word chitta vritti is very interesting. The chitta, the mind stuff, cannot sustain itself unless the modulations are there. So that's why these modulations are called vritti, because that is the occupation of the mind. But unless I can stop that, I can never realize the real me, because the real me is beyond the mind. So that has been indicated as a profound silence. So that's the only condition for manifestation of the knowledge of Brahman, not verbal instructions. It is that silence. Verbal instructions are meant to train one in that mental silence. It has to motivate us to practice so that we can also enter that mental silence. But the real teacher need not resort to the verbal instructions at all. A compassionate gaze, a mere touch, or even mere presence of such guru is sufficient to bring such spiritual awakening. In the life of Shankaracharya, the one who composed this Dakshinamurti Stotram, you will find his life itself is the biggest demonstration of this Mauna Vyakhya. One of the incidences in his life, there are many incidences, that Giri, in Sringeri, one of his disciple, Giri, is apparently not that intelligent to understand the real import of the scriptures. But he was extremely devoted to his Guru Shankaracharya. So he always kept himself busy with all the trivial jobs of the ashrama, plucking flowers, arranging for the ritualistic worship. And one day Shankaracharya was about to instruct all his disciples, but he was waiting. Why he was waiting? No, Giri was yet to come. Then one of the disciples of Shankaracharya immediately commented, why to wait for him? Just to instruct him is just like instructing a wall. If you go sit in front of a wall and go on exposing something, does the wall understand anything? So speaking something to Giri is something like that. Shankaracharya immediately had the tremendous compassion that he has such a tremendous devotion, but maybe he doesn't have that intellect. It was through silence. Shankaracharya imported the entire knowledge, the Vedic knowledge, to Giri, who was still working. And by the time he finished his work and he was returning, everyone was amazed. He has already composed some stotra in Totaka rhyme. And he immediately, as a presentation, as his love for his guru, as a devotion for his guru, he chanted his self-composed hymn. And that's why he is known as Totokacharya. Everyone was amazed. So the gurus, from that compassion in silence, imparted that knowledge. Even in the present days, we find the same thing happened with Swami Vivekananda. When Ramakrishna was in his deathbed in Kashipur, Narendranath, the then Vivekananda, the young boy, he was extremely eager to have that ultimate realization. He was full of that urge, tremendous urge to have that ultimate realization. He was pestering his guru. And one day, Vivekananda was not in presence of Ramakrishna. He was in some other room. He went into deep meditation for hours together. There was no movement. He was looking like a dead log wood. And when he came out of the meditation, those who were near, suddenly they found as if Naren has got mad. He started shouting, "Where is my body? Where is my hand? Where is my feet?" And one of the senior disciples, Buddha Gopal, he thought Naren is going to die. He got extremely scared. He ran to Ramakrishna just to say that, "Master, Naren is about to die. He's behaving in a peculiar way. He was just like a dead logwood for hours, and suddenly when he came back, he's speaking irrelevantly." Ramakrishna, without seeing anything, understood what's happening. What he immediately commented is something very interesting. He told, "That rascal," that was the way of Ramakrishna's addressing, "that rascal was pestering me a lot. Let him be in that state for some time." So when one goes to that realization, it's like for the first time, it's like a new something. That's why it has been in the uh, philosophy, it has been spoken of, it is something neotic. It is something palpably realized, but you cannot explain, ineffable. It is ineffable. You cannot explain what it is. Naren, for the first time, when he went to that realization, it was something like an ineffable. He have realized something, that non-locality. He was not finding his body. It was something like a shock for him, because for the first time he was experiencing something which is very unique, which is not imagination. It is palpably felt. So we find there also it happened in silence. All the spiritual realizations you will find, if you read the spiritual history, happens in silence. All these expositions are only to motivate us to really try, endeavor to go to that silence. But once you reach that state, even for one moment, ignorance falls off, and nothing can befool you. Nothing can delude you anymore. Just to explain that how it happens in silence, we can just take a funny example. A small child was going for the first time to watch a movie with his father, to a theater. And the father was explaining that what movie is. That through the projector, the light will be projected on a screen, and it will make the screen appear as if something real. It will get enlivened. All the drama, the play will be enacted only with the help of this light's projection. That was how father explained the child. Now, when they reached the theater, the movie has already started. And it was a movie on the Mahabharata war. So the movie has started. Now, the child took his seat by the side of his father. And now the child started asking his father, "Where is the screen? You told that there will be a screen on which the light is projected and it will be enlivened." The father told, "It's in front of you. What you are seeing there is a screen." And in the screen, he saw Krishna sitting in his chariot instructing Arjuna, the Bhagavad Gita. So as father pointed towards the screen, the child thought that Krishna to be the screen. Is Krishna the screen? No, my child, it's behind him, behind the Krishna. Oh, then Arjuna must be the screen. The father was now really perturbed. He told, "No, it's behind." Then is the chariot, the battlefield, The sky which is visible beyond the battlefield, Father couldn't explain. The words failed. He tried his best, the words failed. And then came the interval. There was no projection. Now the screen was palpably visible. After that, the movie again started after the intermission. Now the child is sitting quietly. Silence. No need for explanation anymore. Once that intermission has come, you know what the screen is. So that's what is being indicated by the word profound silence. That's the only condition you will find in the history of religion, whatever may be the religion, whatever may be the faith. If you have to find any uh, coordination, that if you have to find any synthesis in all the religions, it's not in the doctrines, it's not in the dogmas, it's not in the rituals, it's not in our mythologies. If you study the life of the mystics and their realization, you will find they're all speaking in the same language. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Shekhane shop shealer ek ra. All the fox howls in the same manner when they go to that realization. We will come to it. And there, if you really have to judge the religions, the synthesis of religions, see the life of the mystics and see their realization. Whether it is the Christian mystics or in Islam, whether it is the Sufis or in Vedanta, the Advaitins or any other religion you go, you will find that there are a group of mystics who reach that state of non-duality, and they all speak in the same language. They have all reached that intermission. The mind stopped projecting for some time. They went to that, and with a tangible, palpable, noetic realization, they come down. That noetic realization, they come down. And sometimes we don't understand because it doesn't relate to our fund of available experience, but it's the truth. We have to rise up to that to really realize it. Now, the word yuva is very interesting. The teacher is young. Why? In Sanskrit, there is another very interesting word called Purana. Purana Purusha. The Ishvara, the God is called Purana Purusha. What's the meaning of the word Purana? Pura api navaiva. Ever aging, never old. God, sometimes we depict God as he's a very old person. For ages together he's there. Sometimes we find in drawings it is depicted as an old person with white beard and all. Brahma is also depicted like that. But here we find Shiva has been depicted as Yuva. Why? Because for God, there is no transformation. For the ultimate reality is an eternal present. For us, with a limited, or with this idea of limited existence, we go through the sixfold transformation. We were born at a certain point of time as a psychophysical existence. We will die. This body is going to be annihilated. So, and from birth to death, constantly transformation is happening. There are sixfold transformations that has been spoken of. Jayate, we are born. Asti, we exist. Vardhate, we grow for some time. As a young person, we start growing. Viparinamate, in the middle age, the transformation starts, growth stops. And then apakshiyate, the decay process starts. And then nasti, the annihilation. So we exist for a limited time, and that also has transformation, constant transformation. But the ultimate reality is pura api navaiva, ever aging, never old. It is an eternal present, and that's why it has been represented as the yuva. He is eternal Purusha, but he's never old. So that ultimate reality is taking the form of Shiva, coming down to instruct the humankind in the knowledge of yoga. And that also is imparted through silence, because it's the silence which is the immediate cause, the effect, which is the immediate cause of your realization. So that's the Mauna Vyakhya. The first line is being described that. But the students are all old. The next line it says, Varishtha ante vasad rishiganai avritam brahmanishtai. Varishtha, they're old sages, ante vasad. They're sitting near. They came and they are surrounding Avritam, means surrounding Dakshinamurti, the compassionate one, the compassionate Shiva, surrounding him, Antevasa, they're sitting near him, eager for the knowledge to be imparted. So Rishiganai, all this word Rishi is also very interesting. Rishi has came from the uh, verbal root arsha. Arsha means straight. This one who has no crookedness, whose mind is straight and broad. These words are so significant. Sometimes some of the incidences of the life of the great person helps us to really understand. You know, Ramakrishna, for the first time, someone told a new road has been constructed in Calcutta. It's called Varakpur Trunk Road, BT Road. Still it's there, exists it was constructed in the British time. In those days, it was one of the it was the broadest road. And if you go, even now you will find it's straight. There is no curve in that road. This road was created to link Calcutta with the barrack, army barrack. It was through the forest, so there was no locality, so there was no need for any curvature. It was the shortest distance, the straight line. So Ramakrishna was curious to see that how that road looks like. For the first time, when he was accompanied by one of his disciples, he reached the road to see the road, immediately went into Samadhi. And when he came down from Samadhi, what he's told is very significant. This road is like the heart of a saint, of a rishi. See, it's straight and broad. There's no crookedness, and it's broad enough to relate to the another level of existence, the spiritual dimension of existence. It is not streamlined just with the world of the five senses. So broad and straight. So Rishi is the Arsha, the pure one. But purity alone is not sufficient. With all the purity, we have to persevere. To really reach that state of the spiritual heights, we need a lot of perseverance. So one has to be nishtha, brahmanishtha. Brahmanishtha is that the perseverance to attain that Brahma Jnana. I have to constantly contemplate on that, the knowledge of Brahman. Constantly contemplation on that para vidya, on the knowledge of Brahman, that I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses. This constant idea of disidentifying myself from my psychophysical existence to relate to that higher reality, constantly doing it mentally, will take us beyond the mind. That's what the scripture says. So Brahmanishta, for that I need the purity. I have to be rishi, I have to be straight, no crookedness. And it has to be done patiently and perseveringly. The age of the rishi, Varishtha, speaks of perseverance. The purity, perseverance, and patience. So this line speaks of the three conditions necessary for our spiritual growth. According to Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda used to say, what are the three conditions necessary for a disciple? He used to say 3P, purity, patience, perseverance. So this line speaks of that we have to have the purity of the rishi. And that also is not sufficient, not for 1 day or 2 days, and not also as per my mood is constant. Today I become rishi and tomorrow again I become a householder. Spirituality cannot be a part-time affair. It has to be 24/7 affair. Constantly that perseverance through perseverance, it has to go on. And we have to have sufficient patience. It may not happen just immediately in a day or two, maybe ages together. That speaks of the age of the rishis, the varishthas, the senior ones. So these are the ones who are now equipped. They're the one who are the adhikari. They are entitled from Brahmagyana. So it's not that the compassionate one comes and all can just avail that knowledge. We have to be up to it. So the condition of the shishya is being spoken of the three conditions necessary: purity, patience, and perseverance, that has been spoken of in this line. The next line is very interesting. Acharyendram kara kalita chin mudram anandamurtim. He's silent, but through silence, he's instructing the highest knowledge just by a mudra, chin mudra, where that's a special mudra. This is the hand, this is the chin mudra, where the index finger meets the thumb. Index finger bends to meet the thumb, and the other three fingers are straight, upright. So this is the chin mudra. What it denotes? The thumb denotes the Paramatman, the ultimate reality, the supreme self. The index finger denotes the Jivatman, your egoistic self, the self which emanates from the idea of the ego, that the aham, I am, this limited sense of individuality, the Jivatman. That's the index finger. The other three fingers are the three states of our existence: Jagrata, Swapna, Shushupti. That in our life, either we are awake, and when we are asleep, most of the time we are dreaming, that is Swapna. And for a very small time, we are in deep sleep where even the dreams are not there. So these are about three states of existence in which my limited idea of individuality is limited with, is enclosed, is encapsulated with these three states of existence. So these three states of existence is indicated by the other three fingers. So what you have to do, the ego has to be disassociated from the other three, from the Jagrata, Swapna, Shushupti state. It has to be humble enough to bow down. That ego, this index finger is always the sign of ego. Whenever we instruct someone, we always point this finger, the sign of ego. So that has to bow down and get united with by merging its individuality. It has to identify with the Paramatman. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, our limited individuality is like a salt doll. To measure the depth of the ocean, that's the real nature. It gets down in the ocean to find its depth. But the moment it gets down, it merges. So that's the individual self merges with the Paramatman. The moment it gets down, it becomes one with it. For bowing down, what it has to do? It has to disassociate from this Jagrata, Swapna, these three states of existence. So this is one of the explanation. The other explanation has to do something with the next few lines. That the other three fingers which are upright, they indicate avidya, kama, karma. Very interesting. That our sense of individuality arises from avidya, from the ignorance. I think myself limited. The moment I think myself limited, what happens? The desire comes. In a petri dish, the moment the ultimate reality finds itself as if as a small microbe, if you put a drop of nutrient in it, it will move towards it. Why? Now it has lost its sense of that non-locality. It thinks it is that small microbe. It is drawn towards it. So all this, what is happening? So when you get identified with your psychophysical existence, you have the desire to maintain it. Why I want to maintain it? Because I have got identified with it. I want to nurture it. That becomes the only aim of my life. And now I have lots of desires. So this, I'm drawn towards that nutrient like a small microbe. So this speaks of the karma. And the desire makes us move towards its karma. And the eternal cycle of this avidya, karma, karma is going on. Constantly we are thinking that happiness is something to be extracted. It's waiting outside in the world. I have to get it. But the real happiness is within. That has been indicated in the that's in the next phrase, that Anandamurti with Acharyendram Karakalita Chinamudra Ananda Rupam. So this Ananda Rupam, this Ananda Murti or Ananda Rupam. So what is this Ananda? The bliss which is within. Now to understand that, we will take an analogy used by Swami Vivekananda, that all happiness is within, it's not without. How we can understand it? He's giving a very nice example that our chitta, our mind staff, think it to be a lake. And the vrittis are the waves on the lake. As long as the waves are there, the water is turmoil. I cannot see the depth of the lake. I cannot see the bottom of the lake. Only when the lake is calm, there is no wave, I can even see the bottom of the lake. Now, our mind is constantly breaking into the vrittis because of the desires. Innumerable desires are there. Now, a child wants a laptop. His father says, okay, you get a good grade in exams. That's the condition. I give you a laptop. The child studies sincerely and gets the grade with an eager to get the laptop. As per the condition, father presents him the laptop and the child is elated. He thinks the laptop has given me happiness. But what has actually happened? In the mind, there were thousands of desires, all got engulfed by the desire of having a laptop. All small waves got engulfed by that big wave. I want that laptop. The moment the child got that laptop, for some time, there was no wave. The wave has subsided. The mind is calm. Now the bottom is visible. What's the bottom of the lake? My real nature. Sat, Chit, Ananda Swarupa. What it means? It is Sat Swarupa. Sat Swarupa means what is Sat? What is the truth? Which has no annihilation. At present, I have an idea that I was born at a certain point of time, I'm going to die at a certain point of time. But the real me is Sat, is beyond these three phases of time, past, present, future. It is Trikal Avadhita. And that truth is not something inert. It's not that the matter, which is eternal, somehow conglomerate to form the consciousness. No. The ultimate reality, the fundamental reality is Chit. It is consciousness. It is awareness. That Sat Swarup is Chit Swarup. And that Chit Swarupata is not like our Chitta at present. Sometimes in the heights of happiness, sometimes in the ebb of dejection. No, it's not like that. It's in eternal bliss. Why we don't realize that? The waves, the Chitta Vrittis, filters out that Ananda Swarupata. It cannot filter out Chit Swarupata, Sat Swarupata. That I'm aware of that always. But Ananda Swarupata, it is selective filtering. Just like a mica sheet. A mica sheet is used to allow the light in, but not the heat. It insulates the heat, but allows the light to pass through. So this is selective filtering. Here also our Chitta, when it is broken into vrittis, it has a selective filtering. The amness is not filtered. It is always there. I am aware of it. But the Ananda Swarupata gets filtered out. When your Chitta is calm, the Ananda is coming from within. For some time that the Chitta has reached a let go situation. All happiness comes from within. But out of my ignorance, what? Because of ignorance, that desire has arisen in my mind. And from the desire, I am resorting to actions, this avidya kama karma, I have to desist from that. Make the mind calm. And then that Ananda Murtim, Ananda Rupa, that will well up. Happiness is not something which can be poured from outside. If you remove all the water from the well, extract out, pump out, you need not have to pour water again. The underground water wells up. That's what happiness, real happiness is. That we are that eternal source of happiness. You just stop the Chitta Vritti, it wells up. But constantly we are making the mistake that it is the external karma that makes me happy. Never makes me happy. It's only the desirelessness that makes me happy. The ultimate, the one who has reached that ultimate reality, he alone can be that Ananda Murti. He alone can be beyond all the fears. Fear comes from the limited idea of individuality, which can be annihilated anytime. The ultimate reality is beyond destruction. So Abhaya, he's out of fear. He's always happy. So that's the Acharya to assure us about our indestructibility. He's showing the Chin Mudra, which is just a simple, uh, what you say, gesture of your hand, but it speaks a lot through silence. So that's he's showing the Chin Mudra to give that instruction. The instruction is dissociate yourself from the three states of existence, this Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Get out from the ignorance and the desire which evolves out of it, and all the actions, all the selfish actions that comes out of it, or result oriented action that comes out of it. Get dissociated from that and calm down the mind and get rid of your ego. You become one with the eternal source of happiness, and there is no annihilation of that. So that's the thing which Chin Mudra indicates. So Acharya showing that, and he's what is it, as he's already established in that. So he's Swatma Rama, Sa Atma. He's always established in his own self, rejoicing in his own self, because the ignorance has fallen off. There is no need, like a suckling babe, to need something to suckle. We are all the eternal suckling babes. In the words of Swami Vivekananda, we have grown up, or we are all mustached babes. We are physically grown up with mustache, but we are babies who are constantly suckling. Swatma Rama is the one who is the self-reliant one. No need of suckling. He has got established in his self. And that's why he's Mudita. Mudita means happiness. Mudita Vadanam. And that's with that eternal joy, with that eternal happiness, he comes down as Dakshinamurti. To such Dakshinamurti, Ide means my salutation, my worship goes. So just see the invocation, the first slok itself has so many layers of understanding. So the other 7 stanzas of the invocation has something to explain on what has been told in the very first stanza. So we won't, because of the shortage of time, we won't go through them all. Now we go directly to the Dakshinamurti Stotram. In the first session, we will try to take the 4 stanzas, the first 4 stanzas. And again, in the evening, the second session, we will take the remaining 6 stanzas for our discussion. So the very first stanza. Om Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nija Antargatam Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Vahi Iva Udbhudam Yatha Nidraya Yah Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanam Evam Advayam Tasmai Sri Gurumurtaye Namaidam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. So let us go to the exposition. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nija Antargatam. So the first sentence is very interesting, where it is. The universe is like a city reflected in a mirror. The entire city seems to be inside the mirror, but really it is outside of it. Actually, it is outside of it. Why it is saying that this analogy has been used? There's another analogy is being used to relate to our real existence in relation to our limited existence. What the real existence is in relation to this limited existence. To explain that, the 2 analogies has been used. The first is the mirror in which the entire city is reflected. It appears as the city is inside, actually it is outside. The next example which has been used is, analogy which has been used is, Bahiriva Udbhudam Yatha Nidraya. When you're dreaming, everything is going on within the mind. But what's your feeling? Everything is going on outside. That's why we have this, what you say, that all those in the dreams, we shout, we scream. All this happens because we see the enemy outside, all the danger outside, all the nightmares happen because everything is so real to us as if it is outside, but everything is happening within the mind. So now, after giving these 2 analogy, now Shankaracharya in the Dakshinamurti Stotram, Shiva is saying this What it is that Shiva is actually explaining, Pashyana Atmani Maya. Similarly, the non dual consciousness is being when it gets reflected in the psychophysical existence, and it appears as the reflection, and we get identified with the reflection, thinking it to be the real, but it's just the reflection. Pashya, the same way, the non-dual reality is getting reflected as if in our this limited existence. The truth or original is the supreme Brahman, the one without second. One's Atman is its reflection, seen through the media of senses, mind, and intellect. So that's what the cause of suffering, in English, we use the word narcissistic. If say anyone is extremely self-possessed, we say he's or she is narcissistic. Why? From where that word has evolved? It's a legendary character, Narcissus. Narcissus is a legendary character. From that, the word has evolved. That Narcissus, a prince, was extremely possessed by his own beauty. He was extremely handsome. And he was so obsessed by his own beauty, he will just stand by this bank, in the bank of the shore of a huge reservoir, and see his reflection, and was immersed in his own beauty. And one day he was so infatuated by his own reflection, he thought it to be real and jumped to grab it, embrace it, and he drowned and died. And that's what happens with all of us. In spiritual sense, we are all narcissistic. The Advaya Tattva, the non-dual reality being reflected in the psychophysical existence, appears as something so real. We as if jump into it, get identified with it. And that's the cause of Bhavaroga Vyadhi. All the disease, which is in the name of worldliness. The disease is also, the word disease is very significant. What is disease? When I'm healthy, I'm not aware of any particular part of my body. My awareness is pervading the entire body. When I feel I'm diseased, when I start saying what? The symptoms. I have a headache. The awareness which was supposed to be pervading the entire body now got localized in the head. I have a headache. I have a heartache. My knees are paining. My joints are paining. I have a stomachache. So when you are healthy, the all-pervading awareness now got localized. And Bhava Roga starts with that. The disease called worldliness starts with this reflection, with this localization. Now we are diseased. So the sun and its reflection in the ocean, the one sun is reflected as many. Each and every wave reflects the sun, and it appears as many. And not only that, with the deformation of the wave, the reflection also becomes deformed. It appears elliptical, it appears circular, it may appear rectangular. Because of the shape of the wave, it also gets deformed. But does the actual reality in any way gets affected? No. The sun is just the sun. But when I am concentrating only on that reflection, all the deformation comes into existence. So that's what is constantly happening. So what Dakshinamurti is as if instructing to realize that turn your attention from the reflection to the sun. Then what happens? Yah shakshat kurute prabodha samay swatmanam evam advayam. The identity of the Supreme Brahman and one's Atman is understood on self-illumination. That I am not the reflection, I am the ultimate reality. When you can just turn around. Prabodha means to wake up. Just when we are in deep sleep, we feel as if my entire existence was eclipsed. I was not aware of it. But when I wake up, then I know that even when I was sleeping, there was no annihilation for me. So same thing happens when we wake up from this long dream of worldliness. That's the prabodha. These words are so interesting. That's prabodha. You wake up and then you realize the identity of the Supreme Brahman and the Atman. The one which is appearing as the local consciousness is actually that non-local. So get rid of the reflection. The one who makes me to get rid of the reflection, he is the Dakshinamurti, is my guru. To him, my salutations. So it's the Guru, the Dakshinamurti, Tasmai Sri Guru Murtaye, Nama Idam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. So, that whenever we speak of the ultimate realization, as we were saying, that all the mystics howl in the same manner. The validity of Advaita Vedanta is the realization of all the mystics who have not studied Advaita Vedanta. Those who have studied in this Advaita Vedanta and after that they went to the realization, seeing him apparently you may say, it is his knowledge which has conditioned his realization. But what about the mystics of other realization who have no as such access to the Advaita Vedanta philosophy? Just by devotion to their own ideal, they go to a realization where they have been censored. The church has censored them, has asked them to stop the way they were speaking. Mr. Eckhart, when he says that the real me is in eternal present. So the word eternal present is some very famous word used by Mr. Eckhart. We find the church at that time was restricting them. They were asking not to speak those words. They were heretic. They were considered, they were branded as heretics because they never understood. The same thing happened with the Sufis. In Islam, that Al-Haq means the ultimate reality. But the Sufis started saying Anal-Haq, and immediately all started saying it is blasphemy. That adding an was something blasphemous. What Anal-Haq means? I am the truth. Till you say that the truth is okay. The moment you say Anal-Haq, and immediately the persecution started. But now, as the days are going, we find the world has started realizing that they have reached the heights of realization and where they're all the mystics are speaking the same language. So what's the common thing there? When you go to that state which is beyond the mind, the perceptual world obliterates. But that can happen even if I am locked in a totally dark room. With my ears plugged, my eyes cannot see, I can be made to sit in a dark room, my perceptions have stopped. Is it ultimate realization? No. However, my perceptions may stop. I cannot get rid of the idea of the locality. That amness I know is being concealed in this psychophysical existence. When you go to that state, that along with that obliteration of the perceptual world, the local consciousness merges in the non-local consciousness. So that's the thing which happened with all the mystics throughout the world. So their language is something which baffles us. We who cannot relate to that, we find it's baffling. But that's what here it has been indicated. Go beyond the reflection, and then you will be identified with your reality, which is the non-dual reality. Otherwise, constantly we are mistaking the reflection to be real, and we are suffering. There's a nice way of saying that there were suddenly in a movie theater, there was an announcement that we have to interrupt the movie, have to stop because there is a fire in the car park. We don't know whose car may be damaged. It's only in a particular corner of the car park. But please move out or your car may be damaged. So all were in anxiety. They all ran out. And luckily not a single car was damaged. They managed to get out with their cars. Though there was a fire, it hadn't damaged any car. But why they were anxious? Because they thought, my car has caught fire. The problem with us in our life is why we are so anxious, why we have so much of anxiety, worry, tension, because we have parked our car in the parking lot named as body, mind, senses. And so when the body, mind, senses is in fire, I think I am in fire. So that's the thing, to get rid of the reflection. That's the parking. That reflection is the parking of the car in the car park. That's the reflection. Get rid of that. Get established in your real nature. And then Whatever the happenings won't stop, it continues, but you are above it. Nothing can affect you. We shouldn't think by the spiritual evolution we can change the ways of the world. No, the world flows as it is. That, as we were saying in the very beginning, the way we react to it, that's what Brahma instructed Shiva. The suffering comes the way we react to it. The way we react to it, that changes. Our paradigm changes. The way we look at the world, that changes. And now we go beyond all the suffering. So that's what is being indicated in the very first stanza. And the one who gives this knowledge to that Dakshinamurti, the one who has come down facing the south from the heights of his Himalayan heights of the spiritual realization, who has come down to such a guru, I bow down. I offer my profound salutation who gives me this knowledge. So this is the first stanza. The second stanza, Vijasya antara iva ankura jagatidam prak nirvikalpam punah maya kalpita desha kala kalana vaichitra chitrikritam mayavi iva vijrimbhayati api mahayogi iva yah swechhaya tasmai Sri Guru Murtaye Nama Idam Sri Dakshinamurtaye. So very profound. So what Vijasya Antara Iva Ankura Jagatidam Prak Nirvikalpam. So he in whom the universe prior to its projection, that Nirvikalpam, Kalpam means to project out. That's to happen is Kalpa. Nirvikalpa, before that projection, before the so-called probability has collapsed into the reality. So before that projection, what was that? That he in whom the entire universe was in the just potentially present, just the way the entire tree is potentially present in a seed. And then the next, now you may find that it is something material. The seed, after all, is taking the nutrients, the minerals from the soil and is projecting out as a tree. So we may have the idea that after all, the seed in which the entire universe was ingrained, was encoded, has the material entity. So now the next line will take us beyond that type of misunderstanding. Punah maya kalpita desha kala kalana vaichitra chitrikritam mayaviva. So if I say it's like a seed, I still have an idea that is coming out from the matter. Matter is coming out from matter. So now here is the second analogy has been given, and by whom it was manifested in space-time causation. Desha is space, kala is time, kalana is the causation to happen. Cause and effect is causation. So desha, beyond that desha kala kalana, by whom, who is beyond that desha kala kalana, he, like a magician from nothing projects this so many varied things out of as if nothing. So that's why to get rid of the idea of material entity of behind the universe, he's saying it is like more like a magician projecting out space-time causation as if out of nothing in a very multi-form to create an Indrajala, to create a world of virtual reality. Vijrimbhayati api, the next example also is almost in the lines of the magician. Vijrimbhayati, to yawn, to project, to expand means Vijrimbha, to expand. Api Mahayogi iva yasvechaya. As a great yogi by his own power can materialize anything from as if nothing. So the creation has came out from that bija. It's just like the DNA in the seed. You know, that's a small seed which is single cellular, which is yet to evolve as a huge tree. If you just see the DNA structure, now when it sprouts out, it becomes multivariate, it is multiform. It has leaves, it has branches, it has roots, it has fruits, it has flowers. But from anywhere you take out a cell and try to decipher the DNA, It's the same DNA. So it is this tat srishtva tat evanu pravishat. In the Upanishad they say, after creating, he has entered into the creation. Swami Vivekananda has a very profound realization in Almora as a wandering monk, that the microcosm and the macrocosm are built in the same plan. In the present scientific language, it is called the holographic universe. You know what is an hologram? Suppose just imagine a cross. You see a huge cross and you go near and expand it to see what each dots of that cross is made of. Any structure is of course made of dots, lot digital dots, and you find to your amazement each dot is also a small cross. Innumerable small cross has made up a big cross. The microcosm and the macrocosm is built in the same plan. The entire universe is hidden in the seed form. But that seed is not material. It's more like the chip of your computer. When it gets activated by the bias voltage, you create a world of virtual reality out of no matter as such. What was there in that chip? Only information, nothing else. Only knowledge, only information is there. That through that you're creating the world of virtual reality. The more the science develops, it becomes more easy to understand the highest spiritual teachings. It's not that the spiritual teachings falls off. It gets a more strong foundation because of the modern day science. It's the information. Just in the chip. It's a small chip. What is there? It's only information, nothing else. That finds expression as the world of virtual reality. That's why the cosmic mind, the mind of the God, in our scripture has been spoken of as Hiranya Garbha. Garbha means womb, but it is not the womb in a material sense. Hiranya, it is illumined with knowledge. It is a storehouse of information. Storehouse of Hiranya means shining like gold. Knowledge shines like gold. So Hiranya Garbha, illumined seed is Hiranya Garbha. What is that illumined? That's knowledge. The ultimate reality finds expression as the cosmic mind, where all the information is already there within, which projects out as the universe. It's not something solid, tangible universe as we think. It is no thing. It is only information. The word information is very interesting in English. If you break it, it becomes in plus formation. Everything is forming within. What's there outside, we don't know. That will be indicated in the next stanza. Here it's a prelude to that. It's a prelude to the next stanza. As we go, we will really realize that everything is information. The external world, what it is indescribable. We don't know. The moment it interacts with our mind and senses, this world of name and form is created. That's everything is forming within. And that's how it is forming within, because it is all the informations which is being projected out. The external world is a mere suggestion to project out the so-called reality in the form of name and form. It is projecting out. It's not out there. The red flower is not out there. I am creating that red flower. We will come to that in the next stanza. So here it gives just an idea. The ultimate reality first expresses itself as the cosmic mind. We are all a part of that cosmic mind. Just like a server computer is connected with so many computers. So by default, they're all connected to the server computer. So God's mind is like that server computer. And we are all like that individual pieces. So the God's mind, when that ultimate reality finds expression as that mind, it is not the mind. Because of ignorance, it finds expression with the mind. And now the ultimate reality, in association with this mind, creates this world, projects this world of virtual reality. It is a world of virtual reality. Previously we used to think that the world of matter is the phenomenon. That's the only thing which exists. The so-called consciousness is epiphenomenon. That by the interaction of the matter, it has been created. But the more the science is developing, we are finding that only consciousness is the phenomenon. The matter is the epiphenomenon. It is no thing. It is nothing means no thing. There is no thing in it. Nothing means not shunya. It means no thing, no such solid thing. It is only consciousness. How it happens, we will try to understand as much as possible with our limited understanding as we go through the stanzas. So let us go through the next stanza. Uh, if I may take a bit more time, another 15 minutes extra, if you don't mind, for expounding the next two sutras before we conclude the first session. So this next two sutras almost have the same idea. We will take up and try to have an understanding what it is uh, indicating at. Yasya eva sphuranam sat atmakam asat kalparthakam bhashate shakshat tattvamasi iti veda vachasa yah bodhayati asritan. Yat shakshat karanat bhavet na punaravritti bhavam bho nidhau tasmai Sri Guru Murtaye namamidam Sri Dakshinamurti. The last line is same for the first 9 slokas, that why I bow down to my Guru. Before that, they are just explaining the various reasons for why he bows down to Guru. So here the realization that everything is information that comes. Yasya eva sphuranam sat atmakam asat kalparthakam bhasate. He by whose light the universe which is unreal, asat kalparthakam, is unreal, appears as almost real. That is that sat atmakam. It appears as almost real. Yasya, by whose association. To understand this line, we will just give you how our perceptions happen. In a very simple way, we will try to understand. When I see the red flower, what's our general understanding is the flower is red. But even science will say you there is no color outside. The light waves have no color. It is only particular wavelengths of light waves. The various bands, the various spectrums are particular wavelengths. When the white light is falling on the flower, all the wavelengths are absorbed by the flower. A particular wavelength is reflected back. It has no color. It comes and strikes your eyes, your retina. The function of the so-called external light, the external wavelength of light, which has no color, it stops there. The moment it touches your retina, it gets converted into nervous current. It is an optical nerve is carrying that nerve current. There is no more light. If you imagine yourself to be sitting in the brain, it is the darkest corner of your body. No light enters there. The brain, which is the organ of the mind, through which the mind is finding expression. So there, what is entering? Only a particular nerve current. And when it reaches the so-called this perception center, visual perception center, it is not actually perceiving. The moment that particular nerve current, nerve wave reaches there, it is decoded as the light. The light is projected from that so-called color perception center of your brain. The color is projected. How it is being projected? The mind which is being activated by your conscious principle. Yeah, otherwise, the mind of a dead body is just dead. When the consciousness is activating the mind, the external world is a mere suggestion, which suggestion is being reacted, is reflected back, is projected out as the red light. The red is emanating from within. It's going and engulfing the flower, and you say the flower is red. Even you can just ask any, you can resort to our science, and you will find, yes, this is the explanation. We are constantly hallucinating. Our brain, you can search in the TED talk. There's a TED talk that how the hallucinating brain, the hallucinating brain. There is a very famous TED talk that there's a neurologist, neurological scientist is explaining the way we are perceiving. It happens with all the 5 senses. So now you will find when even in Vedanta they say that how all the perceptions are happening. Previously I never used to understand. They say the perceptions are happening how? That there is an encapsulation of ignorance of all the so-called things which we see in the world. The conscious principle through the mind percolates, comes out and removes the ignorance to reveal the knowledge out of it. So I used to feel that what it is saying is something impractical. It has nothing to do with the way we think the perception is. Yes, apparently it appears that it is impractical, but now you relate to the findings of the science, you will find it's a wonderful revelation. Our mind is actually a projector, which our so-called the projectors which we have discovered, which we have invented, is a very poor imitation. Our scientific projectors can project only light and sound. The mind is a projector which is projecting 5 things: light, sound, touch, smell, and sound. All those 5 sensations is projected. What is there outside, I don't know. That suggestion is being coming inside and the mind is projecting. So now you will find that the word information means information. It is forming within. It is all forming within to project out. So that's why now we'll find how wonderful it has been indicated. Yasya eva sphuranam, by whose light the universe which is unreal appears as almost real. In the next stanza, another very tangible example will be given that it is coming from within. Shakshat tattvamasi iti veda vachasa yah bodhayati asritan. So this tattvamasi word is very significant here. And who graciously teaches the truth of Brahman to those seeking refuge in him, and who is realized through the comprehension of the meaning of the great Vedic statement tattvamasi. So as long as the projection happens, the external world appears to be so real. The only way, like a small child, he had to wait till the interval. We also have to wait till the interval for the feeling that I am that ultimate reality, Tattvamasi. To explain Tattvamasi may take pages if we resort to the so-called the rhetorical way of understanding, this academic way of understanding. It will become too terse. I will take some wonderful analogy which Swami Vivekananda has given. Very easily, immediately you will understand what a wonderful thing is happening constantly, that how the ultimate realization happens. There's a wonderful story when Swami Vivekananda for the first time visited the Niagara Falls. And he saw, it's even now it is the fact, still now it is the fact, that throughout the day, now because of pollution, it doesn't happen in night. Previously, even in the full moon night, in the Niagara Falls, you can see the rainbow. Constantly it is there in the sky. In the Niagara Falls, the sun is on the sky and the rainbow is on there. So Swamiji was there watching this wonderful panorama, the beauty for hours, and then suddenly a wonderful analogy he created. What's that? The sun is the Brahman. The reflection of the sun in the falls is the Atman. The sun is being reflected in the falls water, that is Atman. The falls is the mind. The mind is constantly flowing. You will find it never stops, thought after thought. And this constitutes the chitta. The moment it stops, it is no more there. Chitta vritti nirodha stops the mind and the mind is gone. So as long as the flow is there, the mind is there. So when the flow is there, the false is the mind, the reflection of the sun is the Atman, and sun is the Brahman, and the rainbow is this panorama, this world. See what a wonderful example Swamiji has made out of this Niagara Falls. Now, if the falls get dried up, will you see the reflection anymore? No. Will the rainbow be there? No. Then what remains? The sun. So where has the reflection gone? It has merged in the sun. Where has the rainbow gone? It has merged in the sun. So you are that. You are the one, the sun, which in one form is finding reflection as the Atman, as myself, which in another way is finding expression as the universe, as this panorama, as the rainbow. Go beyond the mind. Let the flow stop. You are one with the Brahman. That's the Tattvamasi. See, in such a simple words, It's a very terse, this Tattvamasa. If to understand this, it may take pages together, and that also it may become extremely academic. And that's the beauty of these great souls. In what simple word they can explain the truth in just a few words with the help of that example. So Shakshat Tvattvamasi iti Veda Vachasa Yah Bodhayati Asritan. Yat Shakshat Karanat Bhavet na Punaravritti Bhavam Bho Nidhau. Once you see that, once you realize that, there is no question of Punaravritti. You don't come back again. The entire biological evolution is the product of ignorance. Vedanta doesn't deny the biological evolution, but it says it's the product of evolution, it's a product of ignorance. What happened? A small microbe, as we told, that in a petri dish, is drawn towards the nutrient. So that small microbe, what is happening? That the ultimate conscious principle, when is appearing as a reflection in the microbe, constantly that echo is there behind, that you are eternal. But as identification with the body makes it feel that something behind me is saying I'm eternal, but I'm not eternal. A little more light, a little more stronger stimuli destroys me. So what's the biological evolution? That the echo which is behind, that you're eternal, that makes me to realize it in this physical world. But the few cells now conglomerate, they have division of labor. You do digestion, you do respiration, you do circulation, you do all the nervous, all the nerve accents, the brain's action. All this division of labor is there so that I can equip this physical body in a more better way to respond to that echo and say, yes, I am eternal. So we are constantly fighting against that nature to realize that eternity in the physical plane. It's the product of that ignorance because we took the reflection to be real. The day I understand, I'm already perfect. It's the reflection which was making me strive on and on. So again, in Vedanta, they accept evolution and they say it is our product of ignorance and it can never go on in a straight line on and on. It is cyclic. The day you realize it's a futile attempt to find that the echo of that eternity, to express it in the world of this physical plane is impossible. You're already that. You can never materialize in the physical plane. Your futile attempt to realize that eternity in the physical plane stops. That's the renunciation. That's the start of the spiritual journey. And there the cycle is completed. You go back from where you came. So that's how Punaravritti stops. That's avidya kama karma stops. And there is no coming back again once you realize your real nature. That's what the Vedanta stress, that constantly we are taking birth because of that ignorance from avidya kama. The desires are coming, that is impelling us to work, that is impelling us to evolve. It stops when we realize that I'm already pure. And then there is no coming back. So this example that from the within the entire creation is happening is still further explained in the next stanza, with which exposition of which we will conclude the first session. Nana chidra ghata udara sthita Mahadeepa Prabha Bhashwaram. So here a very specific example has been given. Jnanam yasya tu chakshu adi karana dwara bahi spandate janamiti tameva bhantam anubhati etat samastam jagat tasmai Sri Guru Murtaye namaidam Sri Dakshinamurti. So what it is speaking, very interesting. This Nana Chidra Ghatodara Sthita Mahadeepa Prabha Bhashwaram. Just imagine a light kept inside a pot which has many holes. So what will happen? Through all those holes, the light will emanate. So similarly, the thing is happening in our psychophysical existence. Jnanam yasyatu chakshuradi karanadwara bahispandate. He whose light gleams through the senses like the eyes, etc. So that example which we're giving with the help of that red flower, it is a conscious principle sitting, projecting itself through the mind and senses, is finding expression as the light without. It is actually the light within, passing through the holes. The holes in the pot is actually the indriyas. That's why the Indri, there's this eyes, ears are called golakas. They're the holes through which the the light of the self is projecting. So this is the how the knowledge is happening. There is a very nice story. These stories helps us to understand in Buddhism. The shortage of time. I will restrict that story for the next session. It's very interesting. I can just relate in a very short few words. It's a story of Aniruddha, one of Buddha's cousin. He was born with a boon of what do you say that whatever he desires, that will materialize. So he had done some good deeds in his previous birth. So anything he desires, that is bound to materialize. That's the boon with which he was born. Now, as a small child, he was playing with the other children, royal child. So he was accompanied by a servant. Throughout the day, they will spend outside playing with the other royal princes. So the mother has already provided a lunch box to the servant that whenever it's hungry, when my child is hungry, please give the lunch box to him. Now the child, all the children, I know that's out of the childish pranks. They suddenly they devised out a game which speaks of a type of gambling. But now they have no money to gamble with. So with what to gamble? So they say, okay, we all have our lunch box. Our mothers have provided us with a lunch box. So whatever food we have as our lunch, with that we gamble. Now Aniruddha was constantly losing. So his lunch box was empty in no short time. So he ordered the servant, go back to my mother and get me piles of bread, because the first pile of bread is already over. So the servant goes back. The mother thinks most probably my child is very hungry. Today he needs more. Again she piles up the tiffin box, the lunch box with the breads. Now the gambling goes on. The second time also it is exhausted. He loses all the breads. And now he's really hungry. Now again he says to the servant, please go and bring another pile of bread. But this time the mother understands. She realizes some mischief is going on. My child cannot have so many breads. So she returns back the empty lunch box and says the servant, go and tell my child that's no bread. Give it back and say no bread. So the servant comes back, is coming back, not yet he's yet to come back. But now the devas, all the celestial beings, they are very much concerned because Aniruddha has been born with that boon, that whatever material thing he wants, it is bound to materialize. Now, how can he come with an empty lunch box? He wants food should materialize. So all the devas conspiringly fill the lunch box with all celestial breads, very delicious. And now the servant returns back to Aniruddha, delivers him the lunch box, and says, no bread. Aniruddha opens, finds these delicious breads, eats them, and he has liked them so much, he wants the second serving. So now he says, go back to my mother and ask her to give me more no breads. So no bread has become an entity for Aniruddha. That's what is happening with us constantly. It's a wonderful story. So the devas are our indriyas. It is when through that the inner self is illuminating the external world, all the things are happening. It's actually the empty lunch box which is getting filled with the delicious dishes, and the no bread becomes an entity for us. This is the one aspect which has been spoken of. There are two other aspects, which is janamiti and tameva bhantam anubhati etat samastam. So these two we will take up again in the second session. So in the fourth stanza, these are some important ideas. We will take the second half of this fourth stanza in the second session to continue with our discussion, in which in the second session we are going to complete the entire Dakshinamurti Stotram. So you will already have started realizing it's an extremely terse, extremely potent with so many ideas. Though it's just 10 verse, it will take really so much of time to really understand and reflect on it and understand it in proper sense. So with this, we conclude our first session. Namaskars to you all.
Pranam Swamiji.
Namaskar. So there is some provision for question answer session. We are already running out of time. If you have any questions, I think we can take up it in the second half. In the second half, we will try to start immediately after the Aarti and try to finish a bit early so that we can take up the question answers in the second session. So with this, we stop our discussion. Thank you all.
Pranam Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Pranam.